I'm Zoe Delahunty-Light, and having talked at length about Malenia in my last Elden Ring lore video, it's time to go into her eternally young, youthfully cursed twin, Miquella. If you want to know about Malenia herself, make sure to watch my previous Elden Ring lore video, or you can indulge yourself and have a peep at the Elden Ring lore playlist on the Eurogamer channel. Once again, there is a lot to get through here, so I should probably make a start. Like Malenia, Miquella was born cursed. As the twins were born of essentially the same god split in two, Queen Marika the Eternal and Radagon, they were kind of the production of some sort of godlike incest which resulted in this curse. Possibly orchestrated by the Greater Will, possibly a random occurrence, I'm not quite sure at this point. Either way, Miquella was cursed to be eternally young and to never grow into an adult. Despite his childlike appearance, Miquella didn't have the intelligence of a child though. He was smart, ambitious, and above all, devoted to his sister Malenia. After the twins were both chosen to be Empyreans, Miquella set his mind to curing Malenia's curse. She was doomed to have scarlet rot in her veins for eternity, but Miquella suspected that should he be able to grow to adulthood, he'd be able to cure his sister of her blight. He also loved lilies. Before we get onto his efforts to become an adult, I want to talk about what Miquella was actually like and how he was treated by the citizens of the lands between. In the description of the Bewitching Branch, it reads that the Empyrean Miquella is loved by many people. Indeed, he has learned very well how to compel such affection. To me, this sounds slightly shady. It's like it's implying that Miquella learned how to manipulate people into adoring him, implying he might have had a silver tongue of sorts, with even Malenia praising his allure. Considering he was cursed to be a child for eternity, he might have used his childlike appearance to fool people into underestimating him, leading them to forget that behind his deceptively young face was the mind of someone who had lived far longer than it appeared. Miquella was proficient in Golden Order incantations, with his talent being such that he crafted multiple incantations for his father, Radagon, two of them being the Discus of Light and the Triple Rings of Light. Creating these incantations for Radagon is a sign that Miquella was fond of his father, and Radagon returned his affection with the Rings of Radagon incantation, which was created by Radagon for Miquella as a gift of gratitude. I'm not sure what Radagon was grateful for, possibly just for having an apparently devoted son, but there could be something more to that. Did Miquella do a discreet favour for his father, or was it simply to give thanks to the two incantations Miquella had crafted? Whatever the reason, Radagon's gifts weren't enough to keep Miquella devoted to the Golden Order fundamentalism. Realising these incantations and the Golden Order itself was unable to cure Malenia's rot, Miquella devised his own methods that became known as Unalloyed Gold. Unalloyed means pure, so, to me, its name simply demonstrates that Miquella was creating a new school of incantations. Rather than using the power of the Golden Order, which is magic diluted and adapted to work with the Golden Order's own breed of fundamentalist religion, which I'll explain in another video, Miquella didn't care about faith. He just wanted to cure his sister via the purest kind of magic available, hence Unalloyed Gold. One of the items Miquella created was the Unalloyed Gold Needle. This was an exceptional, if unfinished, item. Through his toil, Miquella managed to imbue these needles with the ability to ward away the meddling of outer gods, even rendering the needle able to subdue the flame of frenzy. A video is coming out about the Frenzied Flame and the other outer gods like the Greater Will, just bear with me. Miquella probably anticipated the outer gods would try to influence his study of magic in his quest to cure Malenia of her rot. Hence, his unalloyed needle prevented them from being able to affect, or potentially even spectate him, meaning he could work in peace, unafraid of his toil being manipulated by the outer gods. His intelligence and skill awed Malenia, who saw her twin as the most powerful Empyrean to exist. Creating the Unalloyed Gold Needle wasn't enough, however. Miquella soon realised that in order to cure Malenia of her rot, he would first need to grow to be an adult. But how. The Haligtree was the answer. Halig means holy or sacred in Latin, so in my mind this is an early sign that Miquella might have been on the verge of creating his own religion or faith, whatever you want to call it, through his abandonment of the Golden Order fundamentalism and the magic he used to create the Haligtree. Anyway, that's a theory I need to spend way more time detangling, so onto the Haligtree itself. Miquella's idea was that by embedding himself within the Haligtree in a cocoon, as the tree grew and aged, so would he, effectively cheating his curse and growing into an adult. He went so far as to water the Haligtree with his own blood while he was in the cocoon, with the tree drawing his blood out of him for nourishment in an effort to bind the Haligtree to his flesh so he could grow in tandem with it. By all signs, Miquella was in the process of successfully binding himself with the Haligtree, but he didn't complete his task. During the embedding process, Miquella fell into a deep slumber within his cocoon to conserve energy, as his body was slowly drained of blood. Before I explain what happened next, take a look at the wide shot of the Haligtree and you can see the form of someone in the trunk, probably to reflect Miquella growing into an adult. Look into the description of the sacramental bud, and it also reveals that it was cultivated from youthful sacramental blood, aka Miquella's blood. Plus, you can craft the bewitching branch I mentioned before, and preserving boluses, which, interestingly, alleviates scarlet rot buildup and cures the rot ailment. Miquella, then, seems to have been close to finding a way to cure Malenia, or his blood, unknown to him, held the secret to curing her rot affliction. It seems like Miquella's ultimate aim with the Haligtree was to grow it into becoming an Erdtree, as evidenced by the Haligtree crest surcoat. This probably implies that eventually he might have aimed to challenge the Golden Order and the Elden Ring itself by creating his own kind of religion, but I can't find any more information to confirm that just yet, so once again I'm gonna have to detangle that later on. An unintended side effect of Miquella's toils was that the Haligtree began to become seen by the Albinaurics as a safe haven. Albinaurics, a man-made species who I'll explain more in another video, grew to see the Haligtree as a sacred land where they'd be free from the prejudice of the lands between, as being man-made meant they were born without grace, which rendered them contemptible and unholy in the eyes of many of the inhabitants of the lands between because they're dicks. The Haligtree became so revered that a military faction formed around it named the Haligtree Soldiers. What they didn't realise is that by becoming Haligtree soldiers, they doomed themselves to a violent death. When weakened, these soldiers explode, ostensibly as a last-ditch attack, but going by their description, it feels like this visceral explosion is involuntary. The description of the Haligtree soldier ashes reads that this near-death explosion was the bitter revelation discovered by the desperate soldiers who awaited the return of their lord to the rotted Haligtree. Their dying call was, "May the flash of our deaths guide Miquella's return." At least they found some meaning in this unexpected death, I guess. Why explode when weakened, though? To explain that, let's talk about the Omen, who is very evil and sick-inducing for reasons I can't say on YouTube, but which will become apparent soon: Mohg, the Lord of Blood. Mohg wanted to become a god, and the only way he could do that was by becoming a consort to a god. Miquella, being Empyrean, became the object of his obsession. As Miquella was Empyrean, he could ascend to become the next god of the lands between, and this is something Mohg tried to shortcut. He stole Miquella's cocoon, tearing it out of the Haligtree's womb, and took him to the Mohgwyn Palace, where he used his blood sorcery to turn himself into blood, enter the slumbering Miquella's cocoon, and attempt to commune with Miquella through his dreams. It's written that no matter how much of his bloody bedchamber he tried to share, Mohg received no response from the young Empyrean. Describing Mohg trying to share a bedchamber with a child is absolutely disgusting, and makes it very obvious how depraved Mohg was for reasons you can imagine. All we see of Miquella by the time the Tarnished meets him is his arm, which is now adult-sized but withered, frail and unresponsive. Yet, the introduction to Elden Ring shows the image of Mohg stealing the infant, childlike form of Miquella away. So, Miquella must have turned into that withered thing during his time with Mohg. This hints that Miquella did indeed reach adulthood, but his form might have been corrupted by Mohg, suffering without being able to draw upon the Haligtree for strength. Speaking of the Haligtree, in Miquella's absence, the sum of all his labours rotted. This might be why the Haligtree soldiers explode, as the decay has corrupted the Haligtree and thus the power the Haligtree soldiers channel. Despite being removed from the Haligtree and Mohg's predatory behaviour, Miquella isn't dead. If he were, you'd get his great rune upon slaying Mohg. Sir Gideon Ofnir confirms this, saying that if he continues his slumber within the cocoon, all will be well, but confesses that he has no idea what's going on with Miquella. Cut content reveals that Miquella's great rune is the rune of abundance, by the way, which calls upon part of Miquella's own strength, but I'm not sure of the specifics of what perks that rune confers. For the time being, we'll have to wait to find out, as it would appear Miquella is still sleeping and dreaming in his cocoon. I want to talk to you about St Trina, the goddess of sleep. The sword of St Trina reveals that their gender and age is somewhat fluid, as some say she is a comely young girl, yet others are sure he is a boy. Dolores, the sleeping arrow, dresses in the style of a man to pay homage to Trina's gender fluidity, it would seem. Despite this ambiguity, St Trina's torch states that it's unnerving to see St Trina depicted in adult form, so there's obviously something wrong with the idea of the god being grown. Those priests who worship St Trina put people to sleep to spread their teachings, but sleep isn't the benign effect it might appear to be. It's written that the sweet oblivion of sleep can become quite the habit, hinting at an addiction to sleep, perhaps? The sleep pot goes further, saying that the sleep of St Trina is like a lullaby, or a quagmire, aka a swamp, as it irresistibly draws its victims down into sleep. Whoever St Trina is, their divine sleep has a pull, or an allure, you could say, to it. Within the sleep, one can find St Trina. One man searched for St Trina in this slumber, according to the Fervor's cookbook, which coincidentally gives you the recipe for crafting the bewitching branch I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. With all this mention of youth, gender ambiguity and sleep, you probably know where I'm going with all this. Miquella is probably St Trina. In fact, cut content proves this, with the cut NPC Rico saying, "Finally, I have found it. St Trina's no, Lord Miquella's cadaver." Rico goes on to say that he wishes to become welcomed into Miquella's dream, which Rico calls the world of your heart. So, in his sleep, Miquella has become a whole other type of god. It's theorised that a DLC is on the way which explores Miquella's dream state, as, with Miquella still alive, the Tarnished could voyage into his dreams to try and figure out how to awaken him, defeat him, and claim his great rune. It seems like Miquella uses dreams to communicate with people, as he's unable to break his way out of his cocoon, but that's gonna have to wait to be proved. And that's Miquella's Elden Ring lore. This video was so much longer than I expected it to be, but if you've somehow not yet got your fill of Elden Ring lore, check out the pinned comment where you'll find my Elden Ring lore playlist with loads of other videos about the key characters in From Software's game. The next one is going to be about Millicent and Gowry, who were meant to be in this video, but it ended up being so long that I've had to split it into two. Do you have any other characters or events you're curious about and would like me to cover, apart from the really obvious ones? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, thanks very much, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Eurogamer, as we have a new video out every single day. Now, I'm gonna go and nap, because all this talk of sleep has made me drowsy, so I'll see you next time.